Hello and welcome to another episode of All Politics is Local. I'm your host, John Tian. All Politics is Local is a production of the Greater Blackstone Valley Dems. For more information about the Greater Blackstone Valley Dems, feel free to visit our website at www.gbvdems.org. We have yet another great show planned for you tonight. In the studio with me is Kim Long from the group Moms Demand Action. It's a gun safety group that's doing a lot of great work in the area of gun safety. So Kim, welcome to All Politics is Local, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with me tonight.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's wonderful to have you here, and it's wonderful to see the great work that you guys are doing in this really vital area. Gun safety and gun sense really needs to happen in the United States. We see things like the situation that happened at Sandy Hook in Newtown, Connecticut, that was so awful. And to think that the people actually passed laws on the opposite side of that in response to it. It boggles my mind that we can't have a safer environment here in this country. So let's talk a little bit about Moms Demand Action and where you guys came from, what your roots are, and we do have lots and lots of graphics. This is going to be a graphics heavy show tonight, so we'll be pulling up some graphics here and there, but let's talk a little bit about the history of your group.
Okay, so let me just start by telling you, like Moms Demand Action, much like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, was created to reduce drunk driving. Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America was created to advocate for stronger laws and policies that would reduce gun violence and save lives. So that's primarily what the work of Moms is. I think it's important for people to know that we're a grassroots, nonpartisan organization. I think a lot of times people think we are partisan, but we're not. And we have over 3.5 million supporters, and that's growing.
That's really interesting, 3.5 million. How many NRA members are there?
So the NRA has said for years that they have 4.5 million. Mm-hmm. However, they haven't released any more data on that, to my knowledge, lately that can be vetted, so we're not really sure. And with so much focus on gun violence, especially in this presidential campaign, people are really talking about it. There are a lot of NRA members who've actually not re-upped. So, it'll be interesting, but we're rivaling them, and that's good because that's how we're showing up, and we're counterbalancing their lobbying efforts over the years. So, basically we're an organization that works very hard for common sense solutions that will address our country's culture of gun violence, and we're trying to make changes. A little bit of history about Moms. How it got started was Shannon Watts, who was a stay-at-home mother to 5, was at home the day that the news broke about Sandy Hook. And for people who don't know about Sandy Hook, that was the town in the elementary school in Newtown, Connecticut, where a dangerous person with a gun, this person should never have had access to a gun, shot his way into the Sandy Hook Elementary School, and he murdered 20 first graders and 6 educators. And like most of us, we were in shock and disbelief that we haven't as a nation addressed gun violence, because other things had happened prior to that. But Shannon felt like she just could not sit idly by. She had to do something. So she basically created a Facebook page.
Okay.
And it went viral. I think she was really surprised at how it took off, but I think it opened up. Social media gave Americans an opportunity to sign on and comment about the culture of guns in this country, and also the kind of violence that was taking place. And so, wow, Shannon thought, I have something here, and she really nurtured this. Mm-hmm. And I think for over a year, I'm not sure exactly how long, she put her heart and soul, and still does, into Moms Demand Action, which wasn't called Moms Demand Action when she put up the Facebook page. But she exhausted herself growing this movement, mm-hmm. and she's highly committed to it.
I do have a couple of graphics with quotes from Shannon on them. Maybe we can bring up the
Sure.
first one. Brett, if you don't mind, MDA History A. Take a look right here. We have Pro-gun activists are worried about losing their guns, and moms are worried about losing their children. You tell me who's going to win. I like that quote. That really speaks highly of her and her dedication to this.
Shannon Watts is a 1 in a million person, and she will never give up on this cause that we have to just bring more common sense laws and policies to this country. And fortunately for Shannon, because she was working so hard at this, Michael Bloomberg, who had partnered with Mayor Menino years ago and formed an organization called Mayors Against Illegal Guns, which mayors today still sign a pledge, and they all work, to make sure that we control crime in our cities and urban areas, or anywhere across the country. But Michael Bloomberg, as we all know, had taken a stand on the gun issue very early, and he saw what Shannon was doing, and Moms Demand Action was brought under the umbrella of Everytown. So now we are Everytown and Moms Demand Action.
Okay.
And people can find both of those just by Googling Moms Demand Action or Everytown, and you could stumble upon the websites to see the collaborative work that we're doing. Everytown is our funding arm, it's the umbrella. It's also, staffed with people who are following policy and legislation all across the country, and that they then use that information to reach down into the grassroots area, which is the moms. We're the people on the ground, everyday people in our towns, cities, counties, states, and then at the federal level, and we all work together to be the lobbying group.
Okay, kind of a citizens lobby, more or less.
Exactly, exactly. And we're very committed to.
That's great. Brett, why don't we bring up the second MDA history graphic? It's another quote from Shannon. While the gun lobby can bully politicians, they can't bully American mothers. I got to say, I'm really proud of that sentiment. You do see so often the gun lobby more or less dictating what policy will be. And that it just strikes me the wrong way. It's all about gun sales with them. The more sales they get, the better. They've been scaring people for 7 years now with Obama. Obama's going to take your guns away. Obama's going to take your guns away. Has he taken anybody's gun away? No.
No, and I think it's interesting. It's probably important to point out to people that Moms Demand Action, in our mission statement, we firmly support the Second Amendment. We just want more common sense and responsible laws and policies. And what I know from being a mother and having raised 3 boys and seeing what moms do, we show up at the schools, we do a lot of volunteering. We don't give up on things. Our schools need something, we find a way to raise the money to do it. We see something that's not right, we want to change it. A park is polluted, we work really hard to get it fixed. So what Shannon's trying to tell us with that is that she's pointing out that moms just don't give up. When we decide that we're going to, go after making something right, that's what we're going to do. So.
That's great. Brett, let's bring up the third graphic on the MDA history. So these are some of your accomplishments. Since Sandy Hook, moms in every town have convinced these 11 businesses to adopt gun sense policies. I loved the one about Facebook. Apparently Facebook was allowing gun sales to take place on Facebook, unregulated more or less.
Yeah, so what's interesting about this, and it just speaks to the grassroots effort and the power that moms have in the marketplace, is that Facebook wasn't monitoring the sales that were happening on Facebook, and they were allowing anybody to sell guns. And the assumption was, or at least the pro-gun people were pushing, that everybody who sells a gun is a licensed dealer, and this is all above board, and it's all legal, and it's all safe, and we shouldn't be worried about it. And Moms was trying to show Facebook that no, illegal sales are taking place all the time, and people are using Facebook to do it. We were able to demonstrate that, and Facebook now has a policy where unless you are a federally licensed gun dealer, you will not be able to do any kinds of gun sales. And if they find somebody that's trying to do gun sales, they take it right down, which is great.
Good, good. That's fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about the structure of Moms. You say it's a grassroots organization. Do you have state chapters, national chapters, local chapters? How does that work?
So every state is its own chapter. And within that chapter, there's chapter leadership. So in Massachusetts, we have a chapter lead and other positions that support that: communications, social media, membership, events, campaigns, faith-based leads, and community outreach leads, survivor leads. And we replicate that same leadership organization in local groups. So, for example, I am the local group lead in central Massachusetts, and I have a few towns that are in from Middlesex County that are part of Metro West, because of proximity. And I have a group that is the same leadership organization as the state. And there are other local leads too. There's a North Shore, there's South Shore. We're trying to develop, there's some new people that have stepped forward here in Norfolk County and the southern part of Worcester County that are trying to get organized now, in western Massachusetts. And it just can keep growing and growing and growing. And in my particular area, we have 200 members active, and there are a lot of other people who have just put their name in. Mm-hmm. And when we call on them to do something simple like text the White House, they'll go out there and do that. And so we get that kind of volume of general people, like the American public, speaking out, letting our legislators know how we feel and how we want them to stand on a particular issue when it comes to gun safety.
Well, yeah, there's nothing like voters actually contacting their elected representatives and making the case that this is something that we want.
Right.
That kind of outreach really does work. It really does work wonders. If there's one thing that politicians listen to, it's registered voters. Mm-hmm. Reminds me of the line in Ghostbusters. There was a funny line in Ghostbusters when they were talking to the mayor, and he says, "Look, if we're wrong, if we screw this up, well, it's all on us, and we'll go away quietly. We're gone. Mm-hmm. But if we're right, Lenny, you will have saved the lives of millions of registered voters." So.
Well, I think what's been fascinating about this grassroots movement and everything that's happening right now in the political landscape is that people feel like they have their power back. Mm-hmm. Nobody felt like they really could go up against the gun lobby, and now we show up. We show up in droves. Moms show up, and the House chambers. We show up in Massachusetts when Massachusetts was reevaluating its gun laws, which, by the way, I'm very proud of Massachusetts. We rank in the top 5 states in the country with the best gun laws. We have the most, strict is probably not the right word to use, but we have really good common sense legislation around guns, and we have the lowest death rate. Mm-hmm. So there's a correlation between keeping good laws on the books that help us be safer citizens and keep ourselves safe, and gun deaths and gun misuse of guns.
Sure, I've seen a chart. I'm sorry, I don't have it in a graphic, but I have seen a chart where it shows you state by state the gun laws and the gun deaths correlated, and those states with good, strong gun laws like Massachusetts are all down here on the graph, whereas states with weaker gun laws are up here. More gun deaths because of weaker gun laws, and you can see it's just a straight line relationship between, like you say, good common sense laws and how many gun deaths you experience per 100,000 people.
Yeah, and so to just kind of finish the point I was making, when they were reevaluating our laws in Massachusetts, Moms Demand Action had really just started to get the chapter together. In the past, Senator Michael Moore had told me that, in the past, it was only the gun lobby that showed up to testify at these public hearings that they would have around the state. This time around, the moms were there, and they offered testimony, which really made us feel like, okay, there is a constituency here
Sure.
that really wants to be served the right way, and it turned out really great. And fortunately, again, proud of Massachusetts. Even our, NRA members here supported a lot of this and worked with us. So we're a good example of how, gun rights activists and people who want to see just better public policy around gun laws can work together to come to the right compromises and feel that they're being treated fairly.
That's what we need. We really need to get to a point where there's good balance between gun rights, which we have. We have the right to own arms, to bear arms in this country, and public safety.
Right, exactly.
It's vital that we solve these things. Like we were talking about with Sandy Hook, Adam Lanza should never have had access to that weapon. Even something as simple as a gun safe or
Right.
a trigger lock.
Mental
could have
health is
prevented
such a huge part of this, and I think Massachusetts is demonstrating that we can start to work our way through how do we manage the mental health component of owning a gun and who should have a gun and where they should be able to keep it and that type of thing. And that's, I think the country can look to us to see how we're doing with that.
Right. Well, Massachusetts leads this country. We always have, ever since its founding. Before it
true.
was a country, Massachusetts was leading, and
It's true.
I'm very proud. Massachusetts is my adopted state. I grew up in Connecticut, but I moved to Massachusetts back in the '80s, and I haven't regretted a minute of it. I really love it here, and I'm proud to be in this state. Let's talk a little bit about the Moms Demand Action website. What's your URL? What can people do? How can my viewers take action?
So people can do a couple of things. You can visit momsdemandaction.org. It's all one word, momsdemandaction.org, and you can join. There's a tab that says Join Us. You just simply put in, name, email address. Maybe it asks you for your phone number. We're very tech savvy, us moms, and we use a lot of we text our people and say, everybody needs to do this now. And you get a text on your phone, you can reply in 2 seconds, and boom, you just sent a text to the White House.
Right. You just took action.
And you just took action.
Yeah.
When you do that, I won't lie, we collect your data, and we then feed it into the Massachusetts people go to Massachusetts, and then people like me and a bunch of other people that are part of our members, volunteers within our Moms chapter here, give you a call.
Okay.
And we say, we saw that you expressed some interest in Moms Demand Action. How interested are you? Would you like to be connected with your local group? That type of thing. So those are ways that people can get involved. And everybody, moms are pretty cool about how much you can get involved. We understand everybody's really busy.
Sure.
So if you can give us 5 minutes, we're happy. If you can post to Facebook, we're happy. If you can send a text message to, Senator Warren and Markey, we're happy.
And all of these things are such that you can actually do them while you're doing something else. You could be, like we were talking about earlier before the show, we were talking about if you're sitting at your kid's soccer game,
Absolutely.
And there's a break in the action or something's you can take 5 minutes on your phone, then take action.
Exactly. Posting and sharing is huge in our circle. Moms are on Facebook a lot. That works very well for us. And usually the directions are we give you the directions. It's write to this person, you call somebody. We have a gun sense action calling team. So if you have time during the day and you can spare 1 hour a day to sit by the phone and the phone rings and you answer the phone and you're patched through to, now we work to help other states. An example, Georgia, the governor of Georgia has on his desk right now a bill that he's been hovering over with his pen, whether or not he's going to veto a bill that would force colleges and universities in Georgia to allow guns on campus. It's called Campus Carry.
Wow.
And it went through the legislature, and the governor has said he really thinks he's going to veto this bill. Well, we help by calling the voters of Georgia, letting them know the governor's got his pen out, and he doesn't know what to do with it. Will you help us out and let us patch you through to the governor's desk today and let them know how you feel about this? And that, again, allows us to, lobby as a voter, as a constituent. So we're helping in that respect. And that's something people can do to volunteer.
Okay, so yeah, there's a myriad of ways that people can help with this effort.
Absolutely.
And, that's just really wonderful. Let's move on a little bit to some of the goals of Moms Demand Action. Your first goal that we talked about earlier was to close loopholes. What are these loopholes, and what is it that you want to do?
So typically, well, Moms has always stood for the universal background check and closing what some people will call the gun show loophole, the Brady Bill loophole, the Charleston loophole. And the way we look at it, gun violence in our country, which is so high, over 33,000 Americans die every year due to gun violence. That's a lot of people, if people really just put their mind to that. So we feel very strongly that this isn't a problem for Democrats or Republicans. It's a national problem that deserves a national solution.
Speaking of Democrats and Republicans, let's bring up a quick graphic on that. Brett, we have a image. Yep, there we go. Gun owners strongly support background checks for all gun sales. 82% of gun owners and even 74% of card-carrying NRA members. Let's bring up the next one as well, Brett, the next graphic on background checks. And here we have where it's basically a bipartisan issue, 98% of Democrats and 86% of Republicans. So 92% all told of all Americans support background checks.
It's fascinating that state by state and as a nation, when people are polled, well over half
very nearly 100.
Support these types of, common sense solutions. And a universal background check system would just simply mean that everybody needs to go through a background check. And some Americans, actually a lot of people that I know, assume that that's already
happening.
There.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you, our sister states to the north of us, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, do not have background checks.
Right. And you talk about things like, why is federal legislation required for this? Well, here in Massachusetts, we have such great common sense laws, and it can be circumvented by driving over the border.
That's right.
45 minutes to the north, I can go get a gun.
It's straw purchasing, and people going up there and buying guns and bringing them back to Massachusetts and selling them or giving them to people who shouldn't have them.
Sure. You look at the stats out of Chicago, a city like Chicago, where there's incredible amounts of gun violence. Illinois does have some very strong gun safety legislation in place. How is it circumvented? Most of the guns on the streets in Chicago are coming from Georgia,
right,
where they have very lax gun laws.
Right. So that's something that we've been pushing for, and that was the intent behind President Obama when he did his executive orders. He was trying to push that and say, look, this is good for us as a nation to be doing this. It doesn't hurt anybody. If you have a clean background, there's nothing to worry about. It takes 90 seconds for most people, and that's it. And we're done with it. And then the loophole is kind of piggybacks on that, and that is that Moms is going, you showed a listing of some businesses where we went to the marketplace. We weren't getting satisfaction with legislation, so we went to the marketplace. So when you went to the Charleston shooter, who went into the church and shot the people there, his background check was not completed. So a background check has a 3-day limit, and if it's not completed, the gun sale can go through. It doesn't make any sense, but that got written into the law. Thank you to the gun lobby.
Right.
And so the loophole is we need to let a background check get the full vetting that it needs. And until the law's in place, we've asked people who sell guns to take that upon themselves to make it their own policy, because they can do that.
They can do that voluntarily.
Yes.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
So that's definitely huge on our list.
There's also the gun show loophole in that if you go to a gun show, there's no background checks required.
Yeah.
And that's something that also needs to be closed. I saw a video a while ago of some people who went to a gun show and specifically said to the gun dealer, is there a background check required for this? And the dealer would say, oh no, we're at a gun show, so we don't have to have a background check. And the person would say to them, oh, that's good, because I'd probably fail a background check if you did one on me. And invariably, the dealer would say, oh, don't tell me that, and then sell them the gun. It's really just ludicrous, and we have to put some teeth in some enforcement.
Yeah, I think it's naive of us to ever believe that in any circumstance that everybody's always doing the right thing. And so we need to have a system that checks that to make sure that we can keep ourselves as safe as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've covered a little bit on the loopholes in the universal background checks. Let's talk a little bit about your mission statement, reasonable limits on guns, how they're used. Let's talk a little bit about that.
So I think that speaks to what we're talking about with campus carry and permitless carry and that type of thing. You know, just the idea that you would imagine a college campus or a K through 12 situation where people just openly carry a loaded handgun.
Recipe for disaster.
I have 3 college-age sons,
Yeah.
and I am pretty tapped into their behavior, like what goes on in college campuses, and there's definitely a recipe for disaster on 2 fronts. Not from a violent standpoint, so to speak, but there's a lot of stress on college campuses. This is an awful thought, but access to a firearm is in an impulsive situation when you're not feeling really good about things, and let's face it, 20-year-olds have a lot of pressure on them.
Sure.
This is not a safe thing. And you add alcohol to the mix, this is not a safe thing.
And we all know college campuses, excessive consumption of alcohol happens all the time.
Right. So how guns are, you know, permitted and where they can be, that type of thing. Another part that moms has spent a lot of time with is the open carry laws. We went after Starbucks when Starbucks is a national chain, and the states who have open carry would allow people to walk into a Starbucks to get a latte with a gun
slung over their shoulder.
Right, and who goes to Starbucks mostly? You know, there's a lot of like moms and kids that stop in there and stuff like that. So we said, look, you know what, we are going to stand up and say, we will not go to Starbucks if you do not put a sign in the window saying no guns are allowed here, and you don't do that. We did that with Target, and it started out with grocery stores, like who needs a gun to buy a carton of milk is basically what we're asking.
Right. I've seen graphics online of some gun nuts with guns slung over their shoulders going and buying Oreos.
Yeah, or going to zoos,
Yeah.
or museums, or public places where families go. You know, that type of thing. So there's that, it needs common sense.
Sure.
You just need a common sense approach
Sure.
to that. So we work on advocating for, you know, making sure that happens.
Well, you know, there's something that always strikes me about this. Everybody's a responsible gun owner, right? Until they're not.
Right.
Until they do something wrong. There's case after case of people. There was a woman in Florida a couple of weeks ago who she's a very, very much a Second Amendment rights advocate. Posts on her Facebook page all about it. She posted something on her page saying that she was going to go play with her new toy. And she put up a picture of this nice revolver, or not revolver, but an automatic pistol that she had gotten. The police found her in the middle of the median strip on the highway. Her 4-year-old, coming back from the gun range, her 4-year-old had gotten a hold of the gun and had shot her. That's, you know, she claimed to be a responsible gun owner, but she's clearly not. And I think that personally anybody who would call a weapon a toy doesn't deserve to have one. You know, you really got to kind of reevaluate your priorities there. These are not toys. These, especially a handgun, it's made for one purpose.
That's so true. And you know, I would have to agree, having, you know, been doing this now for a little while, that most gun owners are responsible.
Oh, absolutely. The vast majority of them are responsible.
But every single day, there's a story like the one you just told.
Right.
Unintentional shooting of children. A child picks up a gun, shoots somebody else or themselves.
David Waldman, one of the bloggers at dailycoast.com, puts up a post every week called Gun Fail. And it's all about all the incidents of irresponsible gun ownership in this country that happened in the week before. You know, toddlers being shot, killed, etc. Let's go into some of the graphics that we have. Brett, there's a series of graphics that are children. So here we have toddlers aged 2 to 4 are at the highest risk of self-inflicted shooting. So mom says, store your guns locked and unloaded. I mean, that's just common sense, you know?
And I think sometimes adults need to be reminded of these things. And we have a program called Be Smart marchforkids.org is the website, and this is a 20-minute presentation that we offer to any organization, schools, PTOs, or an organization that wants to bring in parents or caregivers or anybody that works closely with children. And we explain, like, you know, what the SMART stands for and Be Smart, because we're trying to educate parents about keeping their children safe if they own guns, or even having a conversation when you send your child off to play somewhere. You know, parents are always, you know, asking questions of safety. If they're concerned about their children's safety when they go to a play date, or they're going somewhere, they want to know, like, are you close to a busy street, or
Right.
you know, what do you let kids watch on TV, or
Sure.
my child has a peanut allergy, and you have to be really careful with that.
Right. Don't let them have peanut butter cookies. Or, yeah.
Exactly. But people are afraid to ask, do you have firearms?
Right. Is there a gun in the home?
And
is it secured?
And is it secured? And how do you secure it? And that type of thing. So, you know, because of that statistic
Right.
that happens.
Right. Brett, let's bring up the next children graphic. Boys are killed in unintentional shootings more than 3 times as often as girls, and boys are more than 10 times as likely to pull the trigger. It's just, you know, the gun fail diaries at Daily Coast really bear this out so often.
Absolutely. And in the presentation that we give, every single one of the scenarios for the most part are what the curiosity of boys and the temptation. And they're tragic. And what's really tragic is, in most of these instances, it's not the child that injures themselves all the time. It's usually that they've done it to somebody else.
Right.
That's a tragedy, not only for the parent who just lost a child through a tragic gun unintentional shooting, but that child has to live with that, and that
knowledge,
family has to live with
that memory and the counseling that's needed to get through life after doing something like that. You know, there was a case a couple of years ago of that 9-year-old girl who was given an Uzi at a firing range, and she shot the instructor dead on the spot. I don't understand. One of my, again, getting back to dailycoast.com, one of my favorite bloggers there has a signature line that says, in America, you can give an Uzi to a 9-year-old, but you can't give pot brownies to someone suffering and in pain. And you know, it really speaks to some of the ludicrous things that we see in this country, and that's certainly one of them.
Yeah, and the whole like responsibility part of this, even the Be Smart part, is that you know, the NRA does a great job teaching safe handling of guns for people who want to have them. And they talk about lock and storage and stuff like that. But there are a whole lot of other people out there that aren't handling guns, or, you know, or maybe around them or whatever. And that's the part that we focus on, that we feel it's really not a child's responsibility to keep themselves safe. It's an adult's responsibility to make sure children do not get a hold of a gun. So.
Yeah. Let's pull up the next graphic, please, Brett. Children aged 10 to 14 have the highest risk of being unintentionally shot by a peer. Again, store your guns locked and unloaded.
Well, you know what's fascinating? And I think these statistics are probably, I question whether the percentages aren't higher, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get the percentage right, but Harvard did a study, and I think it's like 70% or more of kids know where their parents hide the gun and the ammunition.
Yep.
And I think, you know, the other part of it was like 30-some% have gotten into it. And I'm saying those are only the kids that told
Right.
that told the truth.
That answered.
Exactly.
Truthfully.
Because I wonder about that. I do wonder about that. I mean, I just know from my own childhood, I knew where all kinds of things were in my parents' house that they would have never expected that I could find. But, you know, that's what you do.
Christmas presents.
Exactly. And not only can you find them, you can figure out what's in them. There's like a whole process to do that. So it's, I think parents need to really think about, having a conversation as a family, the adults in the family, like, do we really need to have this? What are the chances of, us having to use this to protect ourselves versus our own children or somebody else's children getting into this and hurting themselves?
Sure. How about the next graphic, Brett, if we could pull up the next one? This one is really frightening. My heart bleeds for the child in the mask there. In the United States of America, about 20 children per day are injured by guns seriously enough to require hospitalization. More than 6% die.
Yeah, so we're so used to talking in our statistics of deaths, but the reality is so many people in this country are injured by guns every single day. It's tragic. It's tragic. It's
really
shameful, I think, as a country.
Earlier you alluded to the statistic of 33,000 people a year are killed by guns in this country. 3,000 people were killed in the World Trade Center, right? And the reaction to that and the reaction to terrorism generally has been so over the top. Things like the USA Patriot Act, spying on Americans, all the things that were done in reaction to that. And they say, well, what about the risks of terrorism, the risks of terrorism? Well, we accept the risks of gun ownership, and 11 times as many people are killed every single year in this country. Again, it flies in the face of logic. So much of this flies in the face of logic. It's just really scary.
Yeah, and I think that it really, we need to do what we talked about earlier when we opened the show, is we have to be able to demonstrate that we can come together, sit down over this issue of how do we, as a nation that wants to allow our citizens a constitutional right to own firearms, but keep ourselves safe at the same time. And that's really why Moms keeps bringing that conversation back to people and educating people, and we see it by the statistics of the people who support. So our job now is to make sure that we elect the right people to office who support common sense gun legislation.
We talked a little bit about Campus Carry earlier too, and something occurred to me that I didn't bring up. What if you're sending your child off to college, say in Florida, which is a stand your ground state? And if there's campus carry in a stand your ground state, isn't that just another recipe for disaster? I mean,
yeah, the statistics are, and people can fact check me on these things because there's a lot. I deal with a lot of numbers all day long, so I could get them wrong. Off a little bit, but I believe that the incident justifiable homicide rate goes up over 50% in states that have stand your ground.
Sure.
Nothing goes down.
Right.
Nobody is safer.
Right.
It hasn't been proven yet.
Yeah.
This is why the conversation needs to be loud. It needs to be out there. We need to be lobbying. We need to be talking. We need to be telling our representatives. When we do that, people start to get a common sense idea of what we can do because they're knowledgeable. Knowledge is power. It's what will change minds and bring us to what we need to be too.
Right. Brett, can you bring up the graphic? I'm not sure which one it is, the besmartforkids.org. Just real quick, I think it's like F or G. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. There you go. So this is the website that you mentioned earlier, besmartforkids.org, where people can go, and there's basically a presentation there.
It's, what's great about this, the Moms offerings are we keep it sweet and simple and easy for people to understand. So what they're going to find at this website is there's a quiz. Everybody should take it. And you'll be surprised that you may get a couple of the questions wrong. But there's a great video that we produced. Melissa Jones Hart did it for us, and she goes through what SMART is in Be Smart.
What is SMART and Be Smart? Let's talk about that.
Okay, so SMART is, S is for secure, all guns in your home and vehicles. M is model good behavior. So the mom that was talking about her toy, that's not how you should be referring to something like a gun.
Right.
So you need to model good behavior when you're around guns. Ask about the presence of unsecured guns in other homes. This is a tricky one But this is why the presentation that we put together is so effective. We help coach parents through how to do that. This does not have to be a confrontational at all. No, it's very matter of fact, and it's effective. Recognize the risks of teen suicide. That's something that we give parents information to where to find more information about anybody who's struggling, or they're feeling that there's somebody at high risk in there. And it's not just teens. Not to get off the subject, but 22,000 veterans take their lives every year.
Wow.
By suicide. And I haven't found out the statistic yet, but I've been asking some people if they can find out how many of those are with a firearm.
Yeah.
Because firearm ownership is very high amongst veterans. And it's about that bad moment where on impulse,
right,
and the access to a gun, that final act happens.
Right, and when you commit suicide with a gun, you're much more likely to succeed.
Yes, and people who attempt by other methods and fail, the statistics are very low that they'll ever reattempt.
Right.
So that it's just access and impulsivity for both teenagers, college students now we have to worry about, and even like other people that are struggling with, suicide thoughts.
Suicide and depression.
Yeah, and then the last one is tell your peers to be smart. We advocate that you bring the conversation forward and get out there, and at least refer people to the BeSmartForKids.org website, where there's a video that goes through all of these and information.
Sure.
So,
And knowledge is power.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about domestic violence. I have some graphics on that as well that you provided. Brett, the first domestic violence graphic, please. The passage of gun-safe storage laws is associated with an 8.3% decline in rates of overall suicide by youths aged 14 to 17. So again, same thing, access, right? That's really what it comes down to. If you have access to a weapon, you're more likely to succeed in a suicide attempt.
Right.
So, again, great work that you're doing to get these safe storage laws passed.
It's just reminding people. Sometimes it's just a reminder because, one of the stories that somebody had told was a grandfather who he doesn't have any, the kids aren't around the house, they're adults.
Right.
Would for home protection, put his a loaded gun on top of a refrigerator, like a second refrigerator as you come in from the, back door. Never thinking twice. And his grandkids from out of town come over and they find it.
Yeah.
And there was a tragedy. It's like that's the kind of thing that these conversations bring out. It just reminds people, hey, we should take a look at this. Or maybe there are guns in the home and people have come to the realization they don't need them anymore, they don't want them anymore. What do you do? How do you get rid of them? That type of thing.
Right.
So.
Right. Let's bring up another domestic violence. In an average month, 51 women are shot to death by a current or former husband or boyfriend. That's almost 2 a day.
It's very, I think, I don't know, you just shake your head, you have no idea, like, what's up with this.
The human cost.
It really is. And so we go out and we lobby in a lot of states for people who have domestic violence, charges, and that the court should be able to disarm that person.
Sure.
And keep the other people safe, because they're using those. That's intimidation.
Yep.
And eventually they'll use it. I mean, that's the statistic.
Yep. That's certainly borne out by that.
Yeah. So the way we all help each other out, the grassroots effort last year, Moms in Rhode Island worked with a whole lot of other organizations and agencies to lobby the state down there to kind of stiffen up their domestic violence laws by removing guns from the household or from the partner, whoever it is. It's not just the house, it's anybody. And it didn't pass. This year they reintroduced it, made a few tweaks to it that were more favorable, I think, to people who had questions about taking guns away from people who maybe shouldn't have them taken away. I guess that was the problem. And I don't know if they voted on it yet or not, but moms in Massachusetts joined forces with the Rhode Island moms to go down and testify and, try to help push that through. That was an interesting day, I must tell you. We arrived at the judicial hearing room at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 or 5. The Massachusetts moms stayed until 1 o'clock in the morning. We listened to all of the testimony.
Wow.
There was a fair group of moms there and a whole bunch of other, organizations and agencies that were testifying that a lot of bills, there wasn't just that particular bill on domestic violence, there were 14 bills that day that they were having a hearing for. And there were 300 gun rights people that showed up, and they all testified.
Wow.
And it was like, but I have to tell you, their argument was the same. It was really about Second Amendment rights and that type of thing, which nobody's saying
Right.
isn't what we should be doing. But the fact that there was another side to the story now, and I think that it's giving this committee something to really, really, think about.
Well, one thing about the Second Amendment proponents, people who are so strongly in favor of the Second Amendment, they seem to forget the opening clause of the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being essential to the, or being necessary for a free state. Well-regulated. Which part of well-regulated do they fail to understand? I understand that the
But
second
even
part
that-
says the
I mean,
right of the people
I
to
know,
bear
but
arms.
even
yeah.
that's been hotly, debated. I've tried to read up on stuff like that, and I'm like, wow, there's an interesting way people spin the arguments either way. You could see it both ways,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
but again, it shouldn't be us, them. We really should be working together on this, and I'm hoping that that's where we're going to eventually get to. So.
That's what we need to do. Brett, the next graphic on domestic violence, please. Women in the U.S. are 11 times more likely to be murdered with guns than women in other high-income countries. And that's because the other high-income countries have sensible gun legislation in place.
Yeah, and it comes down again to keeping guns out of the hands of domestic abusers, felons, and other people, dangerous people, and people that may, demonstrate that they're not stable enough to own a firearm and access.
Right. Access to the firearm. Yeah. Yep. Next graphic, please, Brett. Guns are the preferred murder weapon of domestic abusers. Homicides of women by intimate partners, 2000 to 2012. By gun, 8,187. Looks to me like that's more than all the other methods combined. Just a quick bit of math, yeah.
Easily.
Easily. Yeah, almost a little less than twice as much, but certainly pretty close to twice as many. It's beyond time to keep.
It is
guns.
hard. It is hard to justify not having better policies and laws in place when the statistics are so alarming.
Yeah.
But part of that is the public having understanding, what the data and the statistics are, and not making an assumption. So I encourage people to visit, the 2 websites I mentioned. There's another website that it's smartgunlaws.org, which this is a law group. The data is very well vetted, and it's by state.
Right.
And you can read in depth on each state what the gun laws are, what legislation is pending, what's working, what's not working, what the statistics are. It's really, really good information to have.
Speaking of other groups, do you do any work with Gabby Gifford's group? That's Americans for Responsible Solutions.
So there's a lot of gun violence prevention organizations, and every one of them has taken up a certain cause or an issue or an agenda. So we are working on different agendas, but we all work together. And I think that's why we see statistics that over 80% of Americans, support common sense gun laws and background checks and that type of thing, is because there are a lot of us out there with just a different piece of the overall agenda. Yeah.
Okay. Brett, one more graphic on domestic violence, please. So yeah, this still speaks to domestic violence. There's a couple more that speak to violence generally, but female homicide victims per 100,000 female residents. Look at the United States. talk about an outlier. There it is right there. We have a variety of other countries on that screen, but the United States, well over twice the highest. And what's that, Switzerland? The one that's to the left of the
Switzerland. Switzerland has, I'm not really sure, but I'm thinking that it has a much more open gun law, gun ownership.
Yeah, I believe that there's something about it's required, isn't it?
Yeah,
Something like that in Switzerland. I think that's,
yeah, they don't have an army there.
yeah, they don't have a standing army, so everybody has to have a gun in the home or
Right.
something along those lines. Yeah. So we are down to about 7 minutes left. Brett, if we could do one more of the domestic violence graphics. Yeah, this one speaks to just violence more generally. Gun murders per 100,000 residents. Again, the United States topping the charts with more than 7 times as many as the next nearest.
Yeah, it's interesting. Crime is not going up, but our homicide rate hasn't changed since the 90s.
Right.
So we're not doing something right.
Something's gone wrong here, and it's about time that we did something about it. I'm glad the
Exactly.
moms are behind.
And how do we compare that? How do we stack up to the other, nations?
Sure.
That's how we're
Yeah,
looking at this.
Sure, other
So,
first world nations
Right.
where, highly industrialized societies,
Right.
much like our own, affluent societies where
Right.
people actually have money and, all that kind of stuff. We're very similar in a lot of respects, but gun violence, we're just off the charts. So let's talk a little bit about ways that my viewers can take action. We want to mention your website again, actually your websites, you have a few of them. Do you guys have any events coming up that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so again, taking action, you can join us by going to momsdemandaction.org. You'll read about us on there, but find the join us, log in. You just give a few bit of details, and it's all, we don't use those to sell them to people, or we're pretty protective of our membership. So I think people need to know that. But you would get a call from somebody in Massachusetts asking if you were interested, how would you like to get involved. And then some of the things that we're doing that are coming up are we're having a national event taking place in New York City on May 7th, the weekend of May 7th. It's a Saturday, is the 4th annual Brooklyn Bridge March. And it's Mother's Day weekend,
Okay.
where we get moms, dads, and survivors together to honor the 91 people that are killed every day in this country by a handgun or by a gun. And basically, you just show up with a sign, and we walk across the bridge, and we empty out at City Hall, and there's a rally. So a lot of New England moms are going. Moms from all of the New England states are going down.
Okay. Are you organizing carpools, bus trips?
Yeah, we have a carpool. If somebody wants to donate a bus, we'll be happy to take that donation. I think we could fill it up between Massachusetts moms, Rhode Island moms, New Hampshire,
Sure.
Maine, whatever. So. Then we're having another event in June. It's Let's Turn America Orange Again. This is a national event, and it'll be pretty big this year. On June 2nd, there will be a rally in Boston. I believe it's going to be on the Rose Kennedy Greenway.
Okay.
National has asked us to reach out to our cities and towns and see if they can turn the town orange. So the Zakim Bridge will be lit up, the
Okay.
Rose Kennedy Parkway will be lit up. We ask everybody to show up in orange.
And what's the significance of orange?
So orange is the color hunters wear
Okay.
to say, I'm here, I'm loud, I'm in the woods, don't shoot me.
Don't shoot me. Yes,
Exactly.
yeah.
But this particular Wear Orange event was started because a young lady, her name is Hidayah Pendleton, who was a high school senior, had just returned from
I remember this case. She had just returned from Washington, D.C., right?
That's correct. It's at President Obama's inauguration. She's a majorette. She and her girlfriends were on a city street.
From South Chicago. South side of Chicago.
They just took refuge from the rain, and there was a random drive-by shooting, and she was shot. And so her friends decided they were going to be loud. They wanted to speak out. So they chose orange because it's bright, people see it. It's also the color of gun violence survivors.
Okay.
And so this is the third annual event to raise awareness about gun violence. So it's a gun violence awareness event. And we have a collective of celebrities who've signed on. The mayor of Boston has signed on. He'll be wearing orange that day. We're lighting up the Kenneth Burns Bridge in Worcester. We're still pursuing some things in Worcester to see if they'll be doing things there. But anyway, it's a major event, and there'll be speakers, and it'll be a
Okay.
great
And
event.
what was the date on that again?
June 2nd.
June the 2nd. Okay.
But to find out more, again, you can just go to, well, actually, what I should mention is if you go to Moms Demand Action Facebook page,
Okay.
you'll see a lot of these events posted where there's always a button that you can RSVP or ask for more information.
Okay.
And once you're in our system, I mentioned it earlier about we use texting a lot.
Sure.
You could actually get a text message, hey, we're having this rally, are you interested? And then you just reply, yes, if you are, and we send you more information. That's how easy we make it for people.
Make it easy for people, make it easy for people to take action.
Yep, and in the Worcester local, I host every month a new member welcome orientation /coffee. And if you sign up, and so do other local groups as well. So we have local meetings. But once you sign up online, we get your information eventually, and we reach out to you. So that's
Okay.
the easiest way for people to sign up.
Okay, so that's tremendous. And also, let's mention your websites again. So it's momsdemandaction.org
Yep.
and besmartforkids.org, and that's the number 4, right? So
Be Smart 4,
yeah,
right?
forkids.org. So this has been really tremendous. We have about a minute left. So is there anything else that you'd like to get out to my viewers? This is going to go out on YouTube, so it can go out nationally. And we can also, I have arrangements with about 10 or 12 different cable stations here in southern Worcester County that I can send it to. But if you'd like to get it out to other cable stations, it can go on the air on any
Great, that's
cable
awesome.
access
That's good to know.
station. So what I'll do is I'll upload it to pegmedia.org. I'll send you all the links for that
Okay,
so
great.
that people
Thank
can
you, John.
download it
That's
and we
awesome.
can get this out for some exposure.
Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you. I really had a good time, and I'm happy that we're getting more information out to people. And I hope that we get some interested parties to sign up and join what we're doing here in Massachusetts and add to the 3.5 million supporters we have across the country.
Exactly. Let's get that to 7 million as soon as we can.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. You've been watching All Politics is Local. All Politics is Local is a production of the Greater Blackstone Valley Democrats. For more information about the Greater Blackstone Valley Dems, feel free to visit our website at www.gbvdems.org. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Good night.